Okay, question one. It is estimated that humans begin REM sleep 90 minutes after falling asleep. Based on this, how many seconds? So you just need to know that there are 60 seconds in 1 minute, and you want to convert 90 minutes into seconds. So you just do some multiplication to do the conversion, and you get 5400. The function g is defined by 4x minus 2. What is g minus 3? So for these, you just got to plug in negative 3 for x. So you have 4, negative 3 minus 2. You get negative 12 minus 2, which is negative 14. For line segment AC, the length segment BC is 2 times the length of AB. What represents this? Okay, well, it tells you here that BC is 2 times AB, so 2 AB segments, 2 x's, should give you BC, which is 20. So 2x equals 20. For number 4, 2 people sweep the floor. The table gives their sweeping rates per minute. If each person sweeps the floor for 5 minutes, how much greater of an area does Eric do than Jeremy? Okay, so you just gotta see how much of the floor they sweep after 5 minutes. So Jeremy sweeps for 5 minutes at a rate of 12 yards squared per minute. So he sweeps 60 yards squared. And Eric, you do the same thing. For 5 minutes, he does 16 yards. And so you plug that into your calculator, and you'll get 80. And so 80 is bigger than 60. 80 minus 60 is the difference. It gives you 20. So number 5, what expression is equivalent to this? So here you just want to distribute the x to the fourth, and knowing your exponent rules, if you have the same base, when you multiply into a value with the same base exponent, same base for an exponent, you add these together. So in this case, it'll be 3x4 plus 2 equals 3x to the 6. So following this fashion, you'll get 3x squared plus 4 up here, plus 9x with the invisible 1, plus 4 minus 8x to the fourth. So you'll get 3x to the 6 plus 9x to the fifth minus 8x to the fourth, which is b. So number 6, the function f is defined by fx equals 2x minus 4. What is the y-intercept of the graph? So you don't even need to graph this. You know that the y-intercept is when your x value here is 0, which will give you negative 4. Or you could just look at this equation and just know that this is the slope-intercept form, and this value is always your y-intercept. All right, number 7. This table summarizes the number of public schools in 2 California counties, Los Angeles, San Diego. A public middle school, specifically a middle school, will be selected at random from the 2 counties. What is the probability to the nearest 100th of selecting a school in San Diego? Okay, so you could ignore everything that's not a middle school, and you're picking just San Diego. So the probability is the total number that you want, that being San Diego, over the total value of everything, which is 587. So if you plug this into your calculator, 165 over 587 is 0.28. Number 8, a museum built a scale model where 1 mile in the model is 400 million real miles. The model of the sun is x miles away. Which expression represents the actual distance between the Earth and the sun? Okay, well, if you know that on the model is 400 million miles equates to 1 mile, and you're given x miles away, you just need to multiply x by 400 million to get the actual distance. Okay, number 9. This list shows heights in inches for 6 10-year-olds. A 7th child with a height of 60 inches, okay, will be added to the group. So we add it here on the right because these have to be in ascending order from least to greatest. So 60 is the biggest, so it has to be put there. Which of the following describes how the mean and the median will change? Okay, well, we know that the mean, which is the average, has to go up because now that you added a larger number than any other value seen here, the average has to go up. So it can't be this one, and it can't be this one. So how will the median be? The median is the value in the middle. So you need to start removing the values from the two ends simultaneously. So this you remove 52 and 56 simultaneously, and then 53 and 55 simultaneously, and you're left with these two. So the average between these two becomes your median. And since these are the same two numbers, the average of 54 and 54 is just 54. So your original median originally is 54. Now, if you add that 60, you need to redo that process with that new number. So you take out 52 and 60 simultaneously, then 53 and 56 simultaneously, 54 and 55, and you're left with 54, which is the same as what it was before. So in this case, the answer is C. Number 10, the line of best fit right here underestimates one student's reported average time using the internet by more than 2 hours. For how many hours is a student reported reading offline? Okay, so you just gotta be able to interpret this graph here. So here it's saying that one student's average time using the internet was off by 2 hours. So here's the time using the internet, and here's the line of best fit. So what is more than 2 hours? Wait, this is only one. This was 2 points. This is the individual whose time is 2 hours higher, and how many hours this person report reading offline. We just got to be able to read this graph. So we're at this point here. Where are we on the x-axis, which is time reading? 1.5 hours. According to the line of best fit, if a student spends an average of 1.25 hours reading offline, okay, so reading offline to line of best fit, so we're about, let's clean this up a little bit. We're about right here. Which of the following is the best estimate time that the student would be expected to use the internet? So you just move over to the y-axis, which has the internet time, and it's somewhere between 2.5 and 3, which is C. Line K is defined by y equals negative plus 5. Line J is parallel to K. What is the slope of line J? So parallel lines always have the same slope, and this is the classic slope-intercept form. So you know m is your slope, in this case is negative 1. And since the lines are parallel, they have to have the same slope, so it's negative 1. For survey, students were assigned to either group R or V. Combine the students in both, answered a total of 17 questions. Of these, a total of 9 questions were answered by students in V. This equation describes this situation. R represents the number of questions answered by each in group R. What should define as the best interpretation of 4R in this context? Okay, so 17 was answered total, and then 9 of them came from V. So 4R, it has to be something to do with the R group. So you can immediately remove these. And so the number of students in group R, the total number of questions. Well, it has to be the total number of questions because this equation up here is talking about 17 questions. So this equation has to be dealing with the questions, so it has to be C. How many solutions does this equation have? Okay, so let's distribute this. So you get 5x plus 5 after you distribute equals 5x plus 5. Well, they're the exact same equation. So there's infinite number of solutions. Any value you put in for x, they're going to end up being the same equation every single time. Number 15. The table shows the results of a survey on the average amount of money in dollars consumers will be willing to spend. What is the relationship that can represent this linearity? Okay, so by saying linearity, they're basically saying that there is some type of line, whether it be this way or this way, that can represent this relationship off of this table. So if we make a quick graph and you did this way, where age is on the x-axis and amount of money is on the y-axis, you can see that at 25 you're spending 42, 28 you're spending 36, so you have a negative slope. So with that alone, you can eliminate C and D. It's like, okay, so how do you find the slope? Well, slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's just take something in the middle, like the age 28 and 33. So if we say y2 is 26 and y1 is 36, and the corresponding x is 33 minus 28, you end up with 10 over 5, which is negative 10 over 5, which is negative 2. So the only answer with that slope is A. 16. If x is the solution to the equation, what is the value of x plus 1? Okay, so you don't even need to solve for x. You just need to solve for x plus 1. So we can treat this as a new variable. Let's call it y. because you don't need to deal with looking at x plus 1 and get confused. So you can just say, okay, 4y equals 6 plus 2y and solve for y. So take away 2y on this side, 2y on this side. You have 2y equals 6. And then you have y equals 6 over 2, which is 3. And remember that we substitute y for x plus 1, so you can just stop right there. 17. The initial number of bacteria in the population is 10,000. So since it's the initial, we're probably going to do some type of exponential growth. The bacteria in the population doubles every 12 hours. Which graph represents the bacteria x hours? Okay, so this one's a little interesting. So because they gave you the growth in terms of 12 hours instead of 1. So what you need to do is basically it wants you to graph the exponential growth of this problem. So the formula for that is A naught is equal to P, your principal, times 1 plus your rate, times, or to the power of t, the time. But we want to find what the rate is for 1 in order to generate one of these graphs. So if we assume a principal of 1, then you know that it doubles every 12 hours. So you're going to end up with 2, because 1 times 2 is 2. And you can plug in 12 hours, because you know it doubles every 12, and you can solve for r. So you get 2 is equal to 1 plus r to the 12th power. 1 plus r is this right here. Say r is equal to root 12 2 minus 1. And if you plug that into a calculator, you get r is equal to 0.059. So now you know what the rate is every hour. So now you can say, okay, A naught, your actual growth is A naught times your principal, which was 10,000. But this problem is doing everything in terms of thousands, so you could just put 10. 1 plus the rate, 0.059, to the tth power. And if you were to plug this into Desmos, or your graphing calculator, or what have you, then you'll see that the answer ends up being A. Your graph will end up being like this. 18. The box plots summarize data for 4 sets. Which one has a range of 6? So the range is when you take your max minus your min. So let's just go through these. So let's just start on the bottom. So this is 9 is your max, and 3. So the difference between that is 6, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So answer is D. A forest contains multiple species of trees. T is the total. Okay. H is hickories. K is oaks. If a tree is selected at random, what is the probability of selecting a tree that is neither hickory nor oak? Okay, so you have your total, and you're not picking out a hickory tree, so you have to take away H, and you also picking away an oak tree, which is K. So that is your possibilities of what you're going to get, and you have to do probabilities divided by your total. So this is the relationship. Number 20. In the xy plane, show the quadrants labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. The graph y equals negative x plus h squared plus k, where h and k are positives, is a parabola. Which quadrant is the vertex? So the vertex is when you have a parabola, this shape here, either this way or this way. It's this inflection point, this minimum or maximum. So that's what you want to see. Where does that land in one of these quadrants? So when you have a negative, you know that is going to be downward sloping. And when you have this plus here, you move up or down on the y-axis. So since it told you that k is positive, you know that we're going to end up somewhere here. So the other thing is, okay, what does the plus h do? Well, if you have plus a positive number, which it tells you that h is positive, you're actually moving to the left, meaning that our parabola here will end up being something like this. So you're in quadrant 2. 21. At the beginning of the day, there were 500 items for sale. The number of items at the end of the day was r% less than the number at the beginning. What expression represents this? Okay, so you know you start with 500. And so what you have at the end of the day is r percent less. So we're taking something away from this 500 from your initial. So the first thing to do is that whenever you have percents here, you divide by 100. So it's r percent less than the number at the beginning of the day. So whenever you see of, you multiply. So of the beginning of the day is 500. So times 500 here. And you don't see these as any of the expressions. And that's because you could simplify this. So you do 500 minus 500r over 100. And you can factor out a 500. So you have 500 over 1 minus r over 100. Okay, and this 1 here could be displayed as 100 over 100. So you have 500 over 100 over 100 minus r over 100, which also looks like 500, 100 minus r over 100. Which is A. Alright, 22. The area in square inches of a certain right triangle is given by the equation A equals 1/2 b to b. B is the length of one of the legs of the triangle. Okay, so let's draw out this triangle first. And it's saying that the area is 1/2 b to b. Now, you know the area of a triangle is usually 1/2 base times height. So this already tells you that the height right here is actually 2b. And in the problem, it says b is the length of one of the legs. And you know that the hypotenuse, this side here, across from the right angle, is always the longest side. And b is smaller than 2b, so it has to be here. So what expression is the shortest leg? Well, it's b. Alright, 23. Scientists took 94 ice cores from a glacier. Each section is a right circular cylinder. So let's draw that. And had a length of 1 meter. And diameter of 0.1 meters. Which is the closest to the total volume of the 94? Okay, so you just need to find the volume of one of them and multiply by 94. So the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times the height. So you know the diameter is 2 times the radius. So we have 0.1 is 2r. So r is just going to be 0.05 once you solve that. And so plugging this into the volume equation, you get pi 0.05 squared times the height. And the height was given to us as 1 meter. So plugging this into your calculator, you end up with 0.00785. But you also want to make sure that it's asking for 94 sections. So multiply this number by 94, and you end up with 0.7379. And so what is the closest? Well, the closest is D, 0.7. In this figure here, GE and DH intersect at point F. Which of the following additional statements is sufficient to prove that they are similar? Okay, so similar triangles just mean that they have the same angles. That this angle, this angle, and this angle are equivalent to these. It does not necessarily mean that they have the same size, which is congruency. Similar triangles could have any varying size. So right here where it says the length is 1/3 of HG, that doesn't really help you because it doesn't matter what D is. It could be 1/3, it could be 2/3, it could be perfect, it doesn't matter. So anything saying that 1 is sufficient, we can cross out. So next one, DE is parallel to HG. Okay, well if you know that this is perfectly parallel to this, then that means these angles have to be the same, and these angles have to be the same. So the answer is B. 25. The scatter plot shows the ratio between two x and y as a line of best fit. Which data point has an actual y value that is 2 more than the y value predicted? Okay, that's easy. So you just need to see where on your line of best fit does one of these points is 2 higher. So here you see this is 28. They go in increments of 2. So it's this one right here. So just reading that coordinate, you know, you go x first. So you're at 5 and then 30. So the answer is D. A plant's height is 1.25 times its height from the last week. What was the percent increase? Okay, so whenever you see some scalar 1.25 times its height, the percent increase is just that number minus 1. So 1.25 minus 1 is 0.25. Turn that into a percentage, you get 25%. 27. In a forest, white pine trees between 15 and 45 years grow 36 to 48 inches each year. So a 15-year-old tree was 240 inches tall originally. What is the inequality that shows this height at the end of 45 years? Okay, so luckily we're starting at the beginning and ending at the very end. There's no need for any kind of interpolation there. So you know that the height of the tree can't be any bigger than the most it's projected to grow. So if it's 240 plus the 48 inches it grows every single year times the number of years that it grows. So if it's 15 years old and you're going to 45 years, that's an extra 30 years. And then the other side, you have the same thing. It can't be any smaller than the minimum growth rate. So it's 240 because that's the starting point times 36, which is how much it grows every year, and then the number of years that it grows for, which again is 30. So if you plug these into your calculator, you end up with 1320 is less than or equal to h, or less than or equal to 1680, which is D. All right, 28. P percent of x is 3. What represents x in terms of p? Okay, so you know that p percent of means multiply of x is 3. And you just want to solve for x. So first you know that you need to convert this percent by dividing by 100. So p over 100 times x is 3. And if you move everything to the other side, you get x is equal to 3 times 100 divided by p, moving all these things over to the other side. All right, 29. Which of the following equivalent forms of the given function f displays as the base or the coefficient of the y-coordinate of the y-intercept? Okay, so this question you actually need to graph. If you end up graphing it using your calculator, you end up getting this. And so you know that the y-intercept is where x is 0. So when x is 0, you get 0.11111, which is also equivalent to 1 over 9. And so the base or the coefficient is the value up front. And so the only one that has 1 over 9 is B. 30. Two different store owners in a shopping center estimate the percent of people who wear eyeglasses. They each select a random sample and record whether they wear glasses or not. Okay? If the associated margin of error was calculated the same way, which of the following is the most likely reason that the result for A has a larger margin of error? So the answer is B, because if you have more people in B, meaning there's less people in A. So if you have less people in a smaller number of people who were accounted for accidentally results in a larger percent. So think of it this way. If you have 100 people and you miscount 2, that's not that bad. But if you miscounted 2, but you only had 4 people, that is 50% as opposed to 2%. So your margin of error is way bigger even though you did everything exactly the same. So the answer is B. And another way to look at it is if you're familiar with statistics, the equation for margin of error is equal to your z-score times your population standard deviation divided by the square root of n being the sample size. So as n rises, this this term starts to approach 0, which means your margin of error is getting smaller and smaller, closer to 0. So if A has less people, that means your margin of error will rise. Again, pointing that B is the answer. All right, 31. A limestone stalactite grows at a rate of 1/8 of a millimeter per year. How many years would it take for this to grow a total of 4? Okay, so you grow 1/8 millimeter per year. How long does it take to get 4 millimeters? So just solve for x. So 1 over 8 times x is equal to 4. X is equal to 8 times 4 is 32. 32 years. 32. The solution to the given system is xy. What is the value of 2x? Okay, so you just got to solve for x here. So you do a classic system equation, x plus y equals 10, x minus y equals 4. So you can combine these as a method of solving your system equation. So adding these equations together, you get x plus x is 2x, and then y plus negative y is 0, and 10 plus 4 is 14. So now 2x equals 14, x is equal to 7. So actually, right here, 2x is 14. 33. If 3 root x minus 3 plus 10 is 22, what is the value of x minus 3? Okay, so just move things over. So you have 3 root x minus 3 plus 10 equals 22. So move everything to the other side. X minus 3, take away 10 is going to be 12 here. Divided by 3, you get root x minus 3 is equal to 4. And then you square both sides. X minus 3 is equal to 4 squared. X minus 3 is equal to 16. And it's just asking for x minus 3, so we could stop here. X minus 3 is 16. 34. The table above gives the average speed in miles per hour of each lap around the track for one racing team. For how many laps was the average speed greater than or equal to 150? Okay, anything greater than or equal to 150. Well, this doesn't have the equal sign, so you can remove anything here. How many laps was the average speed? Just add these up. So you have 57 plus 52 plus 35. So put that into your calculator. You end up with 144. A DT and Bella each attempted the long jump 5 times during the track meet. Their distance are shown in the table above. The mean distance for Bella's attempt was 0.3 greater than the mean for DT's attempt. What is x? Okay, so first thing we need to know is what is the average. So the average is equal to the sum of every single attempt that you have divided by your total. That is the average. So we could find a DT's average just by taking the sum of everything that she has. So 4.2 plus 3.8 plus 3.2 plus 4 plus 4.3 and divided by the number of entries, which is 5. So plugging this into your calculator, you end up with 3.9. Okay. And so you know that the mean distance for Bella was 0.3 greater than Aditi's mean. So Aditi's mean plus 0.3 is equal to Bella's mean. Okay, so let's just plug everything in this equation. So we have 3.9 plus 0.3 is equal to x plus 4.4 plus 3.7 plus 3.8 plus 4.6 all over 5. So solving for this, you get 4.2 times 5 minus everything up there is equal to x. And solving for this, you get x is equal to 4.5. Alright, 36. What is the x-coordinate of the x-intercept of the line with the equation 504x plus 2/3 y equals 1? Okay, so you don't actually need to graph this. You can because you have Desmos, but if you want to see how this is actually done, you can see that you could put this into slope intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. So rearranging this, you have 5 over 4 x plus 2 thirds y equals 1. So 2 thirds y equals negative 5 over 4x, moving this over, plus 1. Y is negative 15 over 4x plus 3 by multiplying over the 3, 2y, and divided by 2. Y is negative 15 over 8x plus 3 over 2. So now that we have this, getting the x-intercept is simply plugging 0 in for y and solving. So 0 is negative 15 over 8x plus 3 over 2. And so solving for that, let's get rid of this stuff here from the previous question. Solving for x, you have negative 3 over 2 is negative 15 over 8x. And you can cross multiply here, and so you get negative 30x is equal to negative 24, and you get x is equal to 24 over 30. So x is equal to 4 over 5. Okay, for 37, what is the perimeter of an equilateral triangle with a height 5 root 3? Okay, well, equilateral triangles just mean that each of these sides are equal and that each of these angles are 60 degrees because all triangles have to add up to 180 degrees. And so we're also given the height is 5 root 3. So if we actually break this up into a half of a triangle, we can see some pretty interesting information. So you know that this is 60 degrees. You know that this is 90 degrees because we took half of it, which means the remaining has to be 30. So now you have a special 30, 60, 90 triangle. And 30, 60, 90 triangles have this relationship here saying that each side has these related lengths. Where on the hypotenuse, you have 2x. Where the side of 60 and 90 degrees, it's x. And on the side of 9 degrees and 30, you have x root 3. So if you look at the triangle that we were given, you can see that 5 root 3 is the height for the angle, for the 30 degree angle with the 90 degree on that side. So that means you know that this match, so x is just 5. So this is 5, and this is 10. But this side, the hypotenuse here, is really here. So you know this is 10, and you know that it's an equilateral triangle, so they're all the same. So this is 10, and this is 10. So the perimeter is just the sum of all the sides, which is 10 plus 10 plus 10, which is 30. All right, 38. If the system equation A is positive, what value of A does the system have exactly one distinct real solution? So for this, you need to use the discriminant, where the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. And it tells you how many solutions that your quadratic will have. So if the discriminant d is greater than 0, you have 2 real solutions. If d is equal to 0, that means you have 1 real solution, which is the case that we're interested in. And if d is less than 0, you have 2 imaginary solutions. So first, let's start by substituting in what they give us as y is negative 3. So negative 3 is equal to x squared plus 10x plus a. So moving everything over, 0 is equal to x squared plus 10x a plus 3. Okay, so this is really just one term c. So let's plug everything into the discriminant and set it equal to 0 because we want one real solution. Okay, so 0 is equal to b squared, which is 10, so 10 squared, minus 4a, which is 1, because this is a, this is b, this is c, and 4ac, so a plus 3. And just solve for a. So 0 is equal to 100 minus, so I'm going to distribute this over, minus 4a minus 12. So 0 is equal to 88 minus 4a. So negative 88 is equal to negative 4a. A is equal to 22.